Thank you for joining PRMG University for the discussion about the requirements for the Citibank Homerun program, which is a community lending program. However, before we begin, we would like to advise that while every effort has been made to ensure the reliability of the webinar content, PRMG's product profiles and their updates are the official statements of PRMG, and in the event of discrepancies between the information in this webinar and the product profiles will always supersede the information provided here. The Citibank Homerun Community Lending Program provides an opportunity to provide enhanced pricing in geographic areas that Citibank has identified. This program is available to the retail channel, requires prior approval by Citibank, and requires a manual underwrite that does not use any sort of AUS approval. Additionally, it is critical to understand that the loan documents cannot be drawn until 1 day after the clear to close is issued by Citibank. This program is a non-delegated product, and as mentioned, is a manual underwrite, where Citibank ultimately issues the credit decision. The program offers 15 and 30-year terms, with some odd term options as well, and is subject to standard balance loan limits. It is eligible for primary residence purchase only, and the borrowers cannot own any other properties. There are income limits unless the property is in a Citibank identified designated low to moderate income area. But in all cases, the property has to be located in an eligible area as identified by Citibank. Conversely, PRMG is not delegated on the program. It is a conforming product and is not allowed on non-owner occupied or second home transactions, and refinances are not eligible. The three biggest takeaways we want you to have are that prior approval by Citibank and loan docs must be dated 1 day after clear to close from Citibank. The property must be located within Citibank eligible assessment area, and the borrower must meet income limits unless in a specific Citibank targeted area. Now let's cover some general information about the product. Again, this is a fixed rate product and it allows up to 97% LTV and 105% CLTV. It must be a primary resident purchase where all borrowers occupy. It does allow both 1 and 2 unit properties with scores down to 640 and non-traditional credit for borrowers who don't have scores. Loan amounts are allowed up to standard balance limits. Debt to income ratios vary based on credit score, housing history, and residual income. Appraisal waivers and transferred appraisals are not allowed. Additionally, any down payment assistance programs must be submitted to Citibank for approval, which means you cannot use PRMG's approvals. Condo projects must be confirmed to not be on Citibank approved lists or submitted to them for approval, which can be a very lengthy process. This program also does not allow for temporary buy-downs. There is also homeownership education and housing counseling requirements as shown here, unless they are eligible for the no counseling feature as described in the next slide. Additionally, if the borrower is purchasing a 2-unit property, landlord education may be required in addition to homeownership education or housing counseling. For borrowers who can document prior successful homeownership in the past 3 years, counseling can be waived if the requirements outlined on this slide are met. Now let's discuss how you can determine if the borrower is eligible for the program, which is based on property location, plus in some cases, income limits. All properties have to be in an area as defined by Citibank's assessment area. And then, as long as this is the case, there are 2 options for eligibility. First, qualifying income must be less than 80% of the median family income, or the property must be located within a low and median income census tract as indicated by City Systems. And in that case, there is no income limitation. Exhibit 18, which is available as a link from the product profile, calls out the eligible areas which are located in the states that are listed here. Poly allows you to determine product eligibility in some cases. If you are using Poly for eligibility, enter the address, which will automatically determine the census tract. Then, complete the scenario, and if the loan is eligible based on the LMI census tract, it will show as such in the findings. However, if you are trying to determine eligibility based on qualifying income, the property must still be located in one of the areas on the Citibank assessment area matrix. But in that case, reach out to secondary@prmg.net to confirm eligibility. As mentioned previously, this program requires Citibank to approve the transaction, so let's discuss the prior approval process next. These loans are initially underwritten in the fulfillment center to ensure that the loan meets the general requirements, but are submitted to Jumbo Review at prmg.net for submission to Citibank, as Citibank must underwrite and provide final loan approval on these loans. Additionally, as previously mentioned, docs must be dated the day after the clear to close issued by Citibank. You can find a submission form for the product in the Resource Center. Please note, the top section and contact information will be completed by the Jumbo Review team, even though this is not a Jumbo product. In order to submit the loan from prior approval, all applicable loan documentation in the agency community lending program column of the submission form must be marked ready to ship. The hard pull credit report and the AUS findings with that credit report must be included. The loan underwriter will be responsible to submit the request to the Jumbo Review team to submit the loan for prior approval. When the findings from Citibank are returned, the conditions from the Citibank approval must be entered into Fast Track 360, as the PRMG approval is the only approval that should be published. The loan approval issued by Citibank is not for general distribution. As mentioned, prior approval can be, but is not always, a lengthy process, and it is important that you allow for the additional time it may take for the loan to close. Rushes are unlikely, and delays may occur as final approval from Citibank is required in order to issue a clear to close, and the loan documents must be dated the day after the C2C is issued by Citibank. To help expedite the process, it's important to have all of the required documentation available at the time of submission. Use the submission form on the Resource Center to complete details. But here is a list of some of the critical documents. Again, all loans on this program must be approved by Citibank underwriting for credit and collateral prior to closing. Let's go over the process flow to make sure there is a clear understanding of it. This loan process flow chart helps to demonstrate the way a loan moves through the system on the Citibank Homerun program. In short, the first step after the loan application is taken is to determine if the property is eligible for the product. Then, assuming it is, when the file is ready, have the PRMG underwriter underwrite the loan, and then the file is submitted to Citibank for prior approval. The loan decision will come back from Citibank, and the PRMG underwriter will update the file and provide the loan decision to the loan officer and processor. Conditions will be gathered, just like normal, and submitted back to the PRMG underwriter to determine general acceptability. Those conditions are then submitted to Citibank for final determination, and once all conditions are cleared, the PRMG underwriter issues the C2C. At that point, the following day, the loan goes through the normal doc and funding process. It is crucial to point out that docs cannot be drawn until a minimum of the day after the CTC is issued, and there is no exception to this requirement. Next, we want to cover a few important things for underwriting. Here are a few final important things you will want to remember. For either the initial submission or conditions, all the documents to upload for review should be marked in purple in the system or attached to the email request. Since the review for credit and collateral are handled by two separate teams at Citibank, collateral conditions must be uploaded separately from the credit documents. This means if you're sending attachments, make sure to separate the credit and collateral conditions. Also, Citibank requests to have all or most of the conditions uploaded at once. This, however, does not apply to the appraisal itself. If it comes in after the loan has already been submitted to Citibank for the credit underwrite, the appraisal should be submitted as soon as it is obtained so the Citibank appraisal team can get started on the review. Citibank will not accept piecemeal conditions, so you will want to wait until all, or at least the majority of, the conditions are in to submit to Citibank. For condos, the Jumbo team will need to check to make sure that it is not on their Do Not Lend project condo list, and can also confirm it is already a Citibank approved project or have the project submitted for approval, which can also be a very long and drawn out process. Again, PRMG's Jumbo team acts as a liaison between Citibank and PRMG, so any questions, clarifications, etc. should be submitted to the Jumbo Questions team at jumboquestions@prmg.net, General Citibank Guideline Questions, or Jumbo Review at prmg.net, for loan uploads, questions on loans already submitted for prior approval, etc. However, both teams work together, so either email group can assist. As discussed previously, although this is not a jumbo product, the jumbo underwriting team can help answer questions and provide direction on this product. They welcome the chance to help you with these loans. Don't hesitate to reach out to see if something will work or if you have any questions on a deal.